Welcome to tonight's edition of the Purpose, Value, Meaning, and Web classes entitled How Your Core Values Relate to Your Success. Yes, I know we've had a web class about core values before, but tonight's web class is different because it is important for us to know how our core values are actually related to the success we have in life and why it's important for us to define our own core values as opposed to just going along with the values that are passed from generation to generation and not even sure if they align with the lives that we want to live. I'm Keisha Golder, and I help individuals define their unique purpose so they can live a life that they want on their own terms. I also created the Your Life Purpose Makeover Journey, which is a 3-stage, 9-step program designed to help you find your purpose and live the life you desire. I want to take a second to remind everyone that there will be a question and answer section towards the end of the presentation. So if you can hold all questions until then, I would greatly appreciate it. As always, we will recap a little bit of what we learned last web class, which was about visualization. We discussed what visualization was, how we benefit from the process of visualization, and other techniques besides vision boards that we can incorporate into our lives and possibly layer so that we see the outcomes of the things that we want quicker and better. This week, what are we talking about? We are talking about core values. Like I said, I know that we've talked about core values before, and there's nothing wrong with us refreshing what we've already talked about as far as what they are and how we can identify them. But tonight, I'm adding on why core values matter and the different ways that we can apply core values into our daily lives so that we can gain success or the lives that we desire. Let's jump right on in. So, what are core values and how do we identify them? Core values are, simply put, with no scientific definition, the foundation of your life. Core values determine the choices that we make as well as the direction that our lives goes in. Core values determine the direction of all the areas of our lives, such as relationships, careers, where you live, the partner that you'll choose, the job that you take, how you'll raise your children. Core values are significant in all of that. Most of us do not choose our core values. We just go along with the values that are passed down from generation to generation without realizing that those values may not necessarily align with the direction that we desire for our lives. So we're going to talk more about how to identify the values that identify and align with your life. Now, how can you identify your core values? You can identify your core values through self-reflection. When we participate in self-reflection, we are allowing ourselves to look at all of the moments in our lives where we were happiest, proudest, most satisfied, and most fulfilled. And when we look at each of those categories, we ask ourselves certain questions, such as, what were we doing that made us happy, proud, satisfied, or fulfilled? Was anyone else involved during these moments? And if it was someone else involved, who were they? What other factors contributed to us being happy, fulfilled, satisfied, and proud? Once we've answered these questions, we can determine our top values just based off of those experiences. And when we begin to accumulate the list of what we believe are our values, you go through the list in sets of twos. So you'll take value number one, or the first value that you have listed, and the second value listed. You're going to examine those two values. And out of the two, which one will you choose? And you keep doing this until you've gone through your entire list. And once you've gone through your entire list, you should have a list of your top priorities. And you need to decide then, are these priorities, these values, fitting in, aligned with the vision that I have for myself and my life? Now, there's another way that you can identify your core values, and that's through assessments. The internet is full of assessments that you can take to identify your values. For me, I personally believe that when you figure them out through self-reflection, they are more accurate, because the computer can be a bit impersonal because you're just answering generalized questions. And even though with self-reflection, those questions that I stated are generalized, they are geared towards specific outcomes. Now, what are the types of values? There are 4 types of values. You have individual values, which reflect how we show up in our lives, the principles we live by, and what's important for our own self-interest. We have relationship values. Relationship values relate to how we relate to other people in our lives. And this goes for all types of relationships: work, family, friends, intimate. We have organizational values. These values show how your organization operates in response to the world. Now, when I say organization, that could be if you are a CEO of a company, your company. If you work for someone, the company you work for. If you are an entrepreneur, you need to have values for your company. How do you want the world to see your company? Societal values is the 4th type of values, and they show how your organization, if you have one, and you relate to society. So, core values are essentially the foundation. Just like with a house, you lay the brick that the frame goes in. Core values are that brick. And if the brick is not laid right, the house, the framework, and everything else that goes on that framework is not going to be right. So it is important for us to make sure that we are not just going along with the values that were passed down. And sometimes we may not know that we are just going along. For a long time, for me, I did not know that I was just going along with the values passed down generation to generation. Yes, some of those values I still hold to be true, but the core values, the ones that motivate me to continue to pursue what I want to pursue in life, do not align with those values that have been passed down. I'm actually reading a book right now called The Values Factor. And this book goes on to tell us how we can create an inspired and fulfilling life by not just being generalized with our values, but by being very specific into the things that we know that we need in our lives to be able to be fulfilled. So you probably will get a whole lot more content on values once I am finished reading that book, because I was taken aback when I first started reading the book, because you're always taught to think about these generalized concepts when it comes to values, when you can get very specific and very defined as to how you want your life and know how those values play a part. So let's move on to why knowing your core values matter. Core values matter because they help us grow and develop. Everything in life should be helping you grow and develop. It should be teaching you something. It should be showing you something. It should be, even if it's showing you and teaching you what you don't want, there should be a lesson or blessing in everything that you encounter in life. Core values are no different. So when we are aware of our personal core values, we take those values on. We incorporate those values into everything in our lives, whether we are doing it consciously or subconsciously. Knowing our values help us live intentionally. So if you are going through life not examining your values, not trying to determine whether the values that you have are those that are just carried on or ones that you've defined for yourself, you really have no intention for your life, for how you are living. You don't have a desired outcome. Because when we have a desired outcome, everything that we do is intentionally done to get us to that desired outcome. And so, like, I'm going to give you an example. One of my values is being able to provide for my children the opportunities that I did not have growing up. Now, you can look at that in multiple different ways, and that can mean financially, that could mean exposing them to different cultures, and it's a whole gambit of different things that can be incorporated into that one value. So, in order for me to fulfill this value, of course, I need money, but I need to grow and develop within myself so that I do not lack, one, the mindset, and I do not lack the experience as I did as a child that would allow me to not be able to present my children with the opportunities. Let me frame that a little clearer. So I could say that my value is to expose my children to experiences that I did not have. But if I'm not open to researching different things or going to the opera or traveling the world, any of these things, if my mind is not wide enough, if it's not open enough to say, not only am I exposing my children, I have to be ready to expose myself. And if I'm closed-minded, then I'm not going to be able to expose my children because my mind is saying, well, I didn't experience that. And because I didn't experience that, I'm not going to allow my children to experience that. So you have to grow and mature and allow everything to expand around you. Whether it's doing research, whether it is learning, well, which would fall under research, learning about a culture before you visit it, whether it's learning about the different things that we have here in the United States that can expose our children to different things. All of these things are possible. And so I can't allow what held me back or what I wasn't given as a child to hold me back from giving to my children. We use our core values to create the life that we want. Everyone has an idea, some sort of idea of what they want their future to look like, what they want their life to look like. And when we think about these things that we want to experience in our lives, we have to remember that our values play a huge part in that. And the goal is to identify your values so that you can create the life that you want and be fulfilled and satisfied with it. Values are, like I said, the foundation. If your foundation is rocky, everything that you put on top of that is going to be rocky. The perfect example, when someone has a midlife crisis, it's not a situation of them going crazy. It's a situation of them seeing that everything up until that point was not in alignment with them, was not what they wanted. It was what someone else told them that they should do, and they went ahead and did because they did not know what they wanted. They had not established their values. They had no idea what they desired. They always lived and did what someone else wanted them to do. So, how can we apply our core values into our daily life? Well, here are a couple of different ways. We can put them where we can see them. And I know you're probably like, how can we put core values where we can see them? If you were here last week or you watched the video, you remember me talking about visualization and the different techniques we learned. Some people need a daily visual reminder of what it is that they want. Core values are no different. You put your top values on an index card or a Post-it note and put them where you can see them every day. I'm not sure how many of you remember the show with Gabrielle Union called Being Mary Jane. In this show, she had Post-it notes just about everywhere in her house. These Post-it notes contained ideas, affirmations, everything that she needed to get her through her days were on these Post-it notes. Some of them were on her headboard of her bed, in the bathroom, on the mirror. She had a sliding glass door. Some of them were on there. Literally in places that she frequented in her house were these Post-it notes. Think about this the same way. You put them on Post-it notes or index cards. If you go in the kitchen a lot, put them on the refrigerator. If you go in the bathroom, for when you go in the bathroom, have them on the mirror. If you want to put them on your headboard, do that, but put them somewhere where you can see them every day. And every day that you look at them, it clicks and you say, I need to make sure that I am honoring these values daily in my life, with my decisions, with my actions, with my thoughts. You can discuss your values. Now, when I say to talk about your values, yes, you can talk about them with close relatives, partners, things like that. But I just want you to get in the habit of talking about your values and describing the feelings that you feel, the behaviors and thoughts that you associate with these values. Because the more comfortable you are talking about them and expressing what your values are, the more connected you get to these values. And you won't have to think about it because your feelings are already connected to these values. You're talking about them. You're seeing them everywhere. They're in your mind subconsciously. So you will know, hey, I'm on the right path because I'm following these. Or, that doesn't feel right. I don't believe this aligns with my values. The third way is to put the right people in your life. And you've probably heard me talk about it before, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. What are the people in your life doing? It's one of those four things. And no, here's the thing. Everyone does not have the same core values. But if you are going to be around a person, they should at least, in some type of way, align with your values. So if one of your values is honoring your relationships with, say, your wife or your husband, and you have a person in your circle who dishonors their relationships with their significant other by whatever, cheating or, stepping outside of the relationship, and they always bring the drama to you, you may need to think about having that person in your life because they are not aligned with your value of honoring your relationships. Not to say that they have to have that value, but they're not even aligned because It's not in that's not what they're doing. That's not what they're showing you. And on top of it, they are bringing all of their drama to you. And so you might have to think about the people in your lives. You might have to add new people in your lives and subtract some of the old ones. You can assess your daily tasks. Now, what do I mean when I say assess your daily tasks? So, most people that I know have morning routines, have evening routines, have midday routines. They have routines throughout their day. And these routines serve as a way for them to get things done to help push them further to where they want to be or their desired life. So, are the daily tasks that you are doing aligned with your values? If you value working for yourself, being an entrepreneur, but you are spending half of your day on social media not related to business, is that aligned? Is that daily task aligned with your value of being a successful entrepreneur? I don't think so. So you have to make sure that every task that you are doing is aligned with where you want to go. Now, use your values as motivators. What do you mean? Use your values as motivators. No one knows what you value more than you. So use it as a motivation to get you to where you need to be. If I am going to be here, if I am going to make 100K, if I'm going to make 100K a month, how can my values motivate me? Have to be thoughtful. You have to be thoughtful because you have to know the processes. So you have to be very thoughtful and cognizant of every step that it's going to take to get you there. You're probably going to have to be a researcher to some degree. And some other things. You're going to have to be good with money. So use them as your motivators. I want this. So in order for me to do this, I got to do this first. That's how you can motivate yourself. Take little steps if you have to, but get to the goal. Use your values. Again, it's the foundation. So use it so that you can build upon all of the greatness that you have inside of you. And just like you assess your daily tasks, evaluate your day at bedtime. Think about how the day has gone. Was your day aligned with your values or was it out of whack? You have to be honest with yourself. You can't say my day was aligned with my values, knowing that you acted a fool all day long, curse people out and all of this other things, and that is not in alignment with your values. Excuse me. You know, how could you have done things differently? How could you have handled situations differently so that your values were applied and possibly have gotten a different outcome? These are all the ways that you can apply values in your daily life. No, you're not going to be a master at this overnight. But what you can do is start the process of learning to do these things or doing these things. The more you do it, the better you get. I'm not going to sit here and tell you practice makes perfect because there's no such thing as perfect. But practice makes you better. So I want you to remember that your values will determine how far you go in life. Let me repeat that. Your values will determine how far you go in life. At this time, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself or you can type in the chat box your question and I definitely will answer it. I love to keep in touch and stay connected with everyone, whether it is through my Facebook page at Coach Keisha Golder, through my YouTube, and please make sure you subscribe, which is Keisha Golder, my LinkedIn, Keisha Golder, and of course, my website, KeishaGolder.com. On my website, you can read blog posts, you can watch old web classes, you can sign up for new web classes, you can leave me comments or questions that you may have. When you sign up to receive emails, you are able to stay connected with me. You'll be able to get information about me and the next thing that I'm doing before anyone else. So make sure you visit the website, KeishaGolder.com, and at least sign up for the emails so that you always know what I'm doing, any specials that I have, and what's coming next. Speaking of what's coming next week's web class is going to talk about how developing your communication style can get you what you want. We all have different communication styles, and sometimes it is our communication styles that keeps us from progressing to the next level. So we want to examine what the communication styles are, how we can define our communication style to work so that we can get our desired outcome. And of course, techniques that will help us refine our communication styles. You saw this earlier, but let's talk about this a little more in depth. So tonight's web class, we talked about core values. As you can see, stage 1, which is knowing me, step 2. And it's important for us to know our core values because, like I said, those values guide us in the decisions we make and the way that we live our lives. Every step on this roadmap is important because it helps us learn just a little bit more about ourselves without having the background noise of other people so that we can clearly define what we want our life to be, how we want it to look, and the purpose that we feel that we are here. And then the best part, after we've done that, we will determine how we are going to go about to achieve that purpose. So everyone who works with me does not always need every step of the roadmap. Some of them just need 1 or 2 pieces. Some of them need 3 or 4, and some of them need them all. But these are all pieces to a puzzle that work together. And I am here to help you figure out how to put these pieces together so that you are no longer living a life that you are frustrated with. You're no longer living a life that you want to quit. Your life will be that magical life that you've always desired. The life that you've had in your daydreams. You will be able to have that life once we make it over. Thank you for joining me tonight, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.